Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to your Monday edition of the Post Up with David Grubb here on Boot Crew Media. I, of course, am David Grubb. The story that dominated the headlines over the weekend certainly was Zion Williamson and the lawsuit that has been put against him. According to the suit, which was filed Friday in Los Angeles Superior Court, Zion Williamson engaged in a years-long pattern of abuse of an ex-girlfriend. The name of the woman is not in the suit. She's filed under Jane Doe. So we don't know who has filed these allegations against Zion Williamson, but they are disturbing and they are lengthy, including sexual abuse, financial abuse, and physical intimidation, threats towards her and her family. And those things are very disturbing if they are true. Zion Williamson, his attorneys responded quickly, just a few hours after the suit was filed, saying that they planned to countersue and that this relationship was casual and consensual, that this was never an ex-girlfriend of Zion Williamson, that they didn't have that kind of relationship, and that this is an extortion attempt of a professional athlete. I think that those, putting aside what this situation is, I think the important thing to remember is, number one, and I posted this on YouTube and I've said this on social media. Number one, these are civil allegations and not criminal. So that means two things. One, Zion Williamson is not any threat of going to jail for this. Number two, the burden is different than what it is in a criminal trial, where you have to have guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal trial. In a civil trial, you have to have a preponderance of evidence. So if that you can prove that this case happened, if more evidence exists that it did rather than it did not, you can be found liable for whatever actions have been alleged. So that would be the standard and the limit set here. The other part of this is, I don't want to choose sides. I don't want to say what is going on here. I don't want to say if whatever my opinion is, it doesn't matter. I'm not an attorney. I've not seen the evidence. I'm not attached to either party in this case. I don't have a relationship with those litigants, and neither does anybody watching this or anybody involved in the production of this show. So simply, I would just say, let us not rush to judge on either side. Let us stay neutral and impartial and watch the evidence as it plays out and see what happens. Either way, this is a bad situation. It's bad if Zion Williamson is guilty. Then he has a real problem in it that needs to be addressed. And it would be the tragic downfall of someone with a lot of potential. If he is not guilty, it is also a tragic situation, because then he has been accused of something horrible and had his name dragged through the mud. And I would say the same on the other side for the victim, the alleged victim. If she is a victim, it's a tragedy. And that person is going to go through needs a lot of help and is going to go through a lot of trauma trying to get over this. And if they are not telling the truth in this situation, then that's also sad, because what brings a person to this point, whether it be the pursuit of money or the pursuit of affection or the pursuit of whatever brings a person to the situation where they feel like these accusations are beneficial to them, then we're in a bad place. So there is no winner here. And ultimately, the biggest question for me and for Pelicans fans, if you're watching this, is simply, what do the Pelicans do about this? And how does it impact them on and off the court? Because that's the only thing that any of us are qualified to discuss, whether it be the fan reaction or whether it be the organizational reaction to what's going on. Anything beyond that feels beyond the pale and just out of my pay grade. And I don't want to be put in that position until we've got real information about what's going forward. The question is this the last straw for the New Orleans Pelicans? You have to wonder openly if we've seen the last of Zion Williamson in a New Orleans Pelicans uniform. Certainly, it feels like that the New Orleans Pelicans had to have had some inkling that this was coming. If, as Zion Williamson's attorneys allege, that this case was shopped around to more than one law firm, and that this is, according to their statement, the third attorney that this case was shopped to before accepting it. If that is the case, I would find it hard to believe that no one in either the NBA league office or with the New Orleans Pelicans knew what was going on. I would also imagine, considering that Zion Williamson's attorneys have said that they're preparing their countersuit and will seek damages on behalf of their client, I would imagine too, then that Zion Williamson had this conversation with Joe Dumars in their reported multiple conversations that they've had since Dumars has come on board. And of course, Joe Dumars during his opening press conference mentioned that he had spoken with Zion Williamson on multiple occasions previously. Zion Williamson has never been suspended by the NBA. So you wonder what those conversations with Joe Dumars at the league office were about, and why he would feel the need, or the league would feel the need to have a discussion with Zion Williamson. If they've been discussing this with him, then you have to assume then that the Pelicans were fully aware of this situation when Zion Williamson appeared on the organization's behalf at the lottery. You have to be aware that as the reports came out that Joe Dumars and his relationship with Zion, and it was solidifying, according to multiple sources, that they were aware of the situation. How could they not be? What incentive would there be if you're Zion Williamson to not alert your employer as to what the situation is? You don't want to embarrass the team or the league any further than has been done throughout his brief career. There have been enough of these incidents, whether it's the incident last year in Jefferson Parish with the mother of his child stalking another woman, the allegations of stalking that did not involve Zion Williamson, but directly. He wasn't named in any of the actions, but it's Zion by proxy. And all the other things that have gone on, whether it's been Tattoo-gate, or whether it's been, overeating, or whether it's been absence from games, or whether it's been a reluctance to do this, that, and whatever. It just seems that there's always just been something with Zion Williamson. And we've not been able to go through many off seasons, if any, without hearing something about Zion off the court. Last season was the most quiet it had been on the Zion Williamson front all off season. And we still got a truncated season out of Zion, but a Zion who was in shape when the season started, a Zion who looked committed to basketball throughout the season. So that drama-free offseason seemed to do him some good last year. This year, we go into the offseason with already the speculation had been there about trades for Zion Williamson. Now you have this situation further adding to the fire as to whether or not the Pelicans can keep this situation going. And it feels like for the Pelicans, this is a no-win situation. I don't know how you solve this problem, because if you keep Zion Williamson, there will be the perception that you are enabling an abuser. No matter what, there will be the perception that the Pelicans turned the other cheek when it came to an athlete and some domestic issue. This is difficult for an organization that on the Saints side has had to deal with its involvement with the Catholic Church and those abuse allegations and findings there. You also have the reputation and the history of the Saints as they pursued Deshaun Watson when he was leaving the Houston Texans, and his problems there with masseuses and his use of them. So the Saints already have this nebulous relationship with assault by athletes or within organizations, and their relationship to it. So to have Zion on this other side, it's a tension that you do not want to have if you are the organization. Already there were reports before Joe Dumars came on that the organization was tired of hearing about Zion's life and these things going on outside of it. So you wonder, are they done putting up with this? But if they knew, if this was already on their, already in their realm of understanding, if they were prepared to deal with this, then I don't think it impacts their ultimate plans, because you can't get his value any lower right now. And the ultimate decision for the Pelicans really comes into play on the 15th of this month, because that's when Zion's contract becomes guaranteed. Do the Pelicans decide to cut him before his contract becomes guaranteed? I don't think so. I think ultimately this is, if you've ever seen the clip of Denzel Washington talking with Jamie Foxx, and Denzel talks about, hey, I'm from around the way, I'm leaving with something. Talk about he stole a centerpiece at the Oscars. I'm leaving with something. Well, the Pelicans are leaving with something when it comes to Zion Williamson. They're not going to let him walk for nothing. Even if it makes sense, which I certainly understand the case for them cutting him loose, because you can get out from under that 30 plus million that you owe. And I don't know if you feel like you're going to be willing to extend Zion Williamson any further beyond the end of this contract because of the kind of failures that you've had. But if that's the case, the Pelicans want something in return. Something in return. They know they're not going to get equal value for what they paid for Zion. So you have to treat this like a used car. Who's going to give you the best trade-in? The best value on your trade-in? You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get new car value for Zion Williamson in year 6, year 7, year 8, however long this goes on. But the Pelicans need something back to pay for their next car. They need something. They need picks. They need a player. They need something to be able to return to their fan base and say it was worth this. Because as of right now, when you look at the Pelicans and what they started with in the David Griffin era, what's left to believe in? There's still a belief in Herb Jones. There's still a belief in Trey Murphy, and we'll talk about both of those in a minute. But if you talk about the core of what's been built, all of the assets from the Lakers deal are gone. Zion Williamson is a question mark at best at this stage. Like an extremely talented question mark, but still at best a question mark as to whether or not he'll be available for the majority of the games, as to whether or not he'll be able to lift this team into serious contention, as to whether or not he's supposed to be a building block or a centerpiece, or if he's just a really talented second option. All of those things are still questions around Zion Williamson. The Pelicans have to decide, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is Zion Williamson worth the trouble? And I get every argument that says he is not worth the trouble, that you cannot build around this guy. So go ahead and cut him now. I understand that. But what I'm speaking from is from the Pelicans' perspective on this and just trying to understand the way that they're thinking. And I just don't believe that they're going to cut ties with Zion without trying to get something first. They were already planning on paying him. So to them, that's not a sunken cost that they have to get out from under right now. There are worse costs to them on their books. Players like DeJounte Murray, who I think they view as a bigger problem asset, considering how long he's going to be out and what his trade value could be when he returns and what his value on the court could be when he returns. I think that's a far bigger concern. I think there are bigger concerns like what do you do with CJ McCollum? I think there are bigger concerns as to what do you do with Kelly Olynyk rather than what you do with Zion Williamson, because while his trade value I don't think will dramatically increase over the next few years or the next few months, I don't think it can decrease any further either. So if you're the Pelicans, what can you get? That's what you want to find out. And that's what they're going to try to find out. If that works, we'll see. If it doesn't, we'll see. But I think that's the way they're going. Though, again, I do understand everybody who says right now that you would cut Zion loose and keep it moving. I get it. The other part, I've already discussed why I think they should keep him otherwise. If it's simply a basketball question, I told you why I think they should keep him. But I also understand. I get why you say enough is enough. And I get why the Pelicans could say it's enough. Enough is enough. But I don't think that they will just yet. All right, what that does mean is, are the Pelicans open for business? Are they willing to now entertain these trades and start looking for partners to rebuild this franchise? So the question is, are the Pelicans now in a full rebuild, or are they still reshaping? And you see teams, the buzzards are circling. Every day now, there are more trade articles involving important Pelicans players, not peripheral players, but important key players like Herb Jones, like Trey Murphy. And the Trey Murphy one, the absurdity of the places that they will send Trey Murphy. He's been linked to the Kings. He's been linked to the Lakers. He's been linked to any number of teams because Trey is a really good basketball player. It's that simple. Trey Murphy is a really good basketball player. So a lot of teams are going to want a young ascending star who can shoot it from everywhere on the floor, can be a 3-level scorer, can pass when needed, can rebound effectively at the 3 spot, and can get to the free throw line pretty proficiently and make his free throws when he's there. Yeah, teams want that player. Of course. With the Pelicans, I think, have to decide on ultimately Trae by himself, because we know the Trae and Zion pairing works. But if Zion isn't there, can Trey Murphy still be a centerpiece player, or is he, again, a really great second option? Because I think 99% of the NBA is players who are great second options. If they are first options, they can only carry a team so far. Whether it's your Kevin Durant's, whether it's your Kyrie Irving, whether it's whomever, there's a limit to where those players can go if they don't have the right type of support. Every player you could say that about, but there are certain players you could put anybody around them, and there are very few of those. But there are certain players you put anybody around them, and it feels like that team is going to win or have a real chance to win. With some of these other players, as it gets their matchups, you say, well, that doesn't work for them. Either they're too small, or they're too limited in this, or they don't do that, and that becomes a problem. So, is Trey Murphy one of those transformational players that you can build around, who needs a certain level of support but can get you down the road in the playoffs? Or is Trey Murphy a nice piece to have? And if he's a nice piece to have, then you decide as the Pelicans, who do we go for now? Is there another superstar that you want? And if you do that, you have to prepare for that, because the star is not coming if you haven't built the groundwork. The star is the last piece you add from the exterior if you are a small market team, unless you draft that player. If you draft that player, you got it. If you're trying to get a star, you are trying to get somebody who's on the ascent. The New York Knicks got Jalen Brunson on a deal because the Dallas Mavericks didn't want to pay him starter money. They thought he was a good second option and was not a lead player, so they didn't pay him. He was an ascending player. No one had identified Jalen Brunson as a potential MVP candidate at that time. You thought he could be a really good player. And you've seen the clips of all these teams eating their words about the way that they discussed Jalen Brunson, and now he's developed into this star. The same with Tyrese Halliburton, who couldn't make it work with De'Aaron Fox, and so they shipped one of them out. They send out Halliburton for Sabonis. Worked for the Kings in some regard. It's really worked out for the Pacers, who have gotten an all-star, an Olympian, and a guy who could be a future MVP candidate himself. So unless you can draft that player, and I don't know if the Pelicans are going to be in position to do that over the next couple of seasons, unless you can draft that player, then what you have to do is build the structure and then go find an ascending player for another team. Maybe that player's out there now. Maybe it is a Shaedon Sharpe in Portland. Maybe that's the guy. Maybe it's someone else. I don't know. But if the Pelicans are going to find that player, it's not someone who's already made a bunch of all-star teams. It's not a Kevin Durant is not the piece right now. It's not that guy. Is it Jalen Green from Houston if you try to make that deal? Is it Alperen Şengün, who's rising, but are the Rockets the right team to put him in the MVP conversation? Who's that player? And I think the Pelicans are certainly open for business in the regard that they're going to listen to as many offers as possible. They're going to find out who's out there for them. Do they ultimately make a bunch of deals? Probably not, but I think there will be some deals to certainly restructure this team and put themselves in position for the long term. You've got to start getting those assets. If you want to be like Oklahoma City, if you want to be like Indiana, if you want to be like some of these teams, you've got to start stockpiling your assets in order to make another move. You've already depleted the assets you got from the Lakers deal, and you never were able to make that real move to get the star that you wanted. The best you could do, and it wasn't bad, was CJ McCollum. But now what the Pelicans have to do is figure out, what are you going? Where's the direction that this franchise is going? And from there, then all the rest of your decisions will flow. If it means you've got to move off Herb Jones, if it means you've got to move off Jose Alvarado, if it means you got to move off this player, as long as there's a real direction in place that fans can understand. If Joe Dumars and his team can come out and articulate, this is what we're planning on doing. We think it's going to take this long. Hold us accountable for that. Because quite frankly, it doesn't hurt Joe Dumars to reset the clock with a rebuild. If you don't feel you can win with the guys you have, why waste 2 or 3 years trying to win with this group if you think ultimately a rebuild is what's going to be necessary. Don't go through the window dressing of trying to placate the fans with a pretend run, because that's not going to work either. You're either all in on winning or you're all in on rebuilding. And I think the Pelicans probably should be all in on rebuilding at this point. One of the players that they could look at, who is an interesting player to consider, is Jonathan Kuminga. He's one of those players that we're talking about as somebody who could be ascending to take that next level. Played very well in the playoffs after being sat for a big chunk of the end of the season after Jimmy Butler arrived, and through until Steph Curry went down, was really out of the playoff rotation as well. But what you see out of Jonathan Kuminga is a player who could play the 3 and the 4, who is a willing shooter, is a guy who can rebound, plays with some physicality, and seemed to be getting better and better each year of his career until, Jimmy Butler came along and kind of derailed things. But he had been improving year to year. Scoring average had increased every year until this year, and he started not playing. He had been durable, playing at least 67 games in each of his first 3 seasons. He had been a guy whose starts had continued to go up. His 3-point shooting, while not great, he's a willing shooter, taking more than 3 attempts this past season while shooting 30% from 3. He needs to be a better 3-point shooter, but he's a guy who can play the 4 at 6'8" and play the 3, allowing the Pelicans to play some very interesting lineups if he's on board. The problem with getting Jonathan Kuminga is that what is it going to cost? He's a restricted free agent with the Warriors, so they can match any deal for him, though it doesn't seem like the Warriors are interested in doing so because they've already got a number of expensive contracts and probably want to get better. So if you're going to make a sign and trade for Kuminga, what are you offering in return? So I think that if you're the Pelicans, what you're trying to offer is you need to be part of a 3-team deal there and figure this out, because you don't have the assets that the Warriors are going to want immediately unless you're giving up Herb Jones. That would have to be the cost for the Golden State Warriors. And I don't know if the Pelicans would be willing to pay that cost, but to me, it'd be the first step, again, in a complete rebuild. If you're getting rid of Herb Jones, go ahead and move on it and get rid of Zion Williamson as well and start really moving on. Because Herb Jones is your connector piece. He's your highest basketball IQ player. He's your regular defensive stopper. So if you're taking him, which is, I think, the only way you can get a Jonathan Kuminga, or unless you're trading Zion Williamson to the Warriors, then if those are the 2 options, then I think you're going to have to send Herb Jones to Golden State to get Jonathan Kuminga. And I think folks would say, is that the kind of player that you want? And I think, yeah. You look at Jonathan Kuminga, who played on a championship team when he was 19, has been to the playoffs 3 times in his career, has shown that he can be a high volume second piece or third piece in your offense. Last year, I think his usage problem really impacted his play, because when you look at the things that he needs to be good at, corner threes in his previous 2 seasons, he shot better than 42% from the corner on his 3-point attempts. What has happened is that he has not gotten the right kinds of shots again. How does his utilization work? I don't think he was a great fit maybe for the motion-based offense that Steve Kerr has in place. How do the Pelicans find a way to use him more at the 4 spot at 6'8"? So I think Jonathan Kuminga could be a target. Again, the price is either going to be Zion Williamson in some package or Herb Jones in some package, or you're working for part of a 3-team deal where your picks go somewhere else and Kuminga's got to move as part of the deal and you make that work. But I think he's a reasonable target who could, again, reach his potential with another team. He hasn't necessarily peaked out at 23 years old. He's soon to be 23. He has not reached his peak yet. So I think you could see the evolution there of Jonathan Kuminga, and he becomes a reasonable target. That's going to do it for today's show. Not a lot to talk about in real terms, but a lot of projection. And that's what the next few weeks are going to be out. It's a tough part of the season because what we're dealing with primarily is conjecture and ideas. No real substance to talk about until we get to the actual draft, until we get to actual free agency. So what we'll do, y'all give me your thoughts in the comments on what you'd like to see me talk about. Give me some ideas on things that I could hit on So go ahead and leave those in the comments below, whether it's trade ideas, whether it be talking about some draft targets in particular, and we can do that. We'll expand on those ideas that you guys have, and I'll continue, of course, to peruse the headlines and look for some information to bring to you each and every episode. But until then, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell as well, so you don't miss an episode of the Post Up right here on Boot Crew Media. Until the next time, I am David Grubb. Y'all have a great day.